It's been a while since we had a 4-star character that actually works so well, and in this video, I'm going to give Yaoyao an honest showcase, reveal to you some unique things about her, and most importantly, I'll show you some really interesting teams you can build with her. So, I'm actually surprised how good Yaoyao is. She's obviously not on the same level as the original 4-star characters, and that's totally fine, but she is able to achieve several important things. Still, she's not perfect, and I'll talk about this as well, but for now, let's take a look at her personal potential. Keep in mind, I am showcasing Constellations Yaoyao with level 9 skill and burst. So, first of all, she's a Dendro healer, and I wanted to see how good she is at keeping the team alive. The healing loadout I'm using here is what I suspect will be the most popular build, which is Deepwood Forset and Favonius Lance. And starting with her skill, the bunny she summons will shoot 10 radishes, and each one will heal for about 1350, but also her first passive will kick in after healing, which will periodically restore 283 health, up to 5 times in 5 seconds. In total, with just the skill and passive, she can restore roughly 15k health to a single target. That's pretty average healing she can provide when compared to other healers. However, here's where things get interesting. When she uses her burst, she can summon up to 3 bunnies by running, jumping, or dashing, and each one will keep shooting radishes for 5 seconds, restoring 1600 health. And here's the kicker, these bunnies are actually healing the whole team, so now everyone can restore up to 20,000 health, which I think is pretty amazing. Also, Yaoyao herself will shoot radishes during the burst mode anytime she dashes, runs, or jumps, and these radishes will end up on the ground or hit enemies, but you can also pick them up for additional healing. Now, the downside of this burst is that you need to remain on the field with Yaoyao. If you switch her out, the burst ends and all bunnies disappear except for the one you summoned from the skill. It would have been nice if this burst would work off-field, but honestly, the amount of healing it provides is kinda insane, and I actually treat this burst as an emergency button when everyone's living on the edge. Also, here's another cool thing about her. The bunny she summons from the skill will gain the healing and damage multipliers from the burst, so all 4 bunnies during the burst will be the same, and as you saw yourself, burst bunnies have slightly better healing than skill bunny. On top of this, Yaoyao also gains movement speed increase during the burst, so she can zoom around faster. But what about a fully dedicated healer build? Well, by using Black Tassel and combining 2 healing sets, now her skill will heal around 2600, passive 560, and each burst radish will roughly restore 3200 health. You can take a look at this beefy team full of high health allies and realize how much her burst will heal for. If Yaoyao remains throughout the whole burst, she can roughly regain 30,000 health for each teammate, including herself, or effectively heal for 120,000. This is why I'm calling this burst emergency mode healing. It's just so good at restoring everyone's health. And there's various ways you could go on building her healing set, like budget tenacity force set, but I'll showcase some of these builds in the next part. Now, let's talk about her damage. I gave her Staff of Homa, Gilded Dreams Forset, and put her in a team that focuses on boosting her with various buffs. The result? It's not great, but also not negligible. She's able to deal about 270,000 damage by using her skill and burst, but remember, this is not a realistic build. However, in the Abyss, she will be able to provide somewhat relevant damage if you don't commit to her full healer build. All in all, while her healing from the skill is average, she can easily restore the whole team with her burst, although that does mean you need to sacrifice the field time and run or jump around like a maniac. So, what teams can you build with Yaoyao? Well, the first one that comes to mind would be the good old Quicken team with Fischl, Kaching, and Kazuha or Sucrose. This team is always fun to use, but I would sometimes run into a problem of losing one of the team members, because other Dendro applicators like Traveler or Nahida, well, they don't heal. And so in this team comp, Yaoyao serves a pretty simple role. Apply enough Dendro to activate Quicken on enemies and heal the allies. And if you equip her with Tenacity Forset and or Moonpiercer, she can also buff the team as well. However, I did notice one thing about her radishes. The bunnies will throw radishes at your active character if they fall below 70% health. Otherwise, they will target random enemies at range, or if there's no other valid target, those radishes will stay on the ground and explode on contact, or expire within 5 seconds. This whole targeting logic Hoyover's devs programmed is interesting to say the least, but at the end of the day, most of the characters fight at a pretty close range to enemies, and regardless of who is the target, if you stand close enough to the explosion, both enemies will get damaged and the active character gets healed. And while the explosion AoE isn't that big, you can definitely work with it. So the Quicken team works really well with her. Next teams I wanted to check out were Hyperbloom and Burgeon comps. Honestly, because of the targeting logic, it can sometimes go really well with multiple enemies, and sometimes it's kinda bad. Not enough Dendro gets applied, and the reactions can become messed up. It didn't happen often for me, but Yaoyao's application as a solo Dendro unit isn't as reliable as Traveler's or Nahida's. And just to show you how often she can cause reactions, her skill by itself will create 4 reactions throughout the whole whole duration. If you use her burst by itself, then 4 reactions will also happen. I know it looks like the bunnies apply a ton of Dendro, but yet again, Hoyoverse specifically made sure there's a specific timing for this burst, and only 4 reactions can come out of it. In fact, when I used the skill with burst together, it became even more weird, because altogether, she was able to create 6 reactions total. But keep in mind, with multiple enemies, each of them have separate ICDs, so if randomly targeting, there's definitely gonna be more reactions. Now, I want to talk about double Dendro teams with Alhaitham. He actually works super well with her, because not only can she heal him while he stays on field, but her skill will consistently generate particles. You see, when she uses her skill, in 10 seconds, 5 Dendro particles will be generated, and if she's off field, Alhaitham or somebody else on field can easily collect them. Now, in most teams, she won't stay with Yaoyao on field for that long, so she will be energy starved, especially since her burst costs 80. However, as I said previously, Yaoyao needs to stay on the field for those burst bunnies to remain, and that is precious time taken away when you're doing the Abyss. So it's actually totally fine not to burst with her every rotation, and her energy needs become much less relevant. Obviously, if you build her with some damage, then you want to make sure she at least has 180% ER, and there's a Favonius weapon equipped on someone. But moving over, the last team I really wanted to try out was Nilou's Bountiful Bloom comps. One of the biggest drawbacks to playing Nilou comps right now is that you're basically forced to either run Barbara or Kokomi to make sure the team stays alive from all those bountiful cores going off and self-damaging you. Well, with the full healer build, I had absolutely no problem keeping the team alive, although I did need to use Yaoyao's burst several times for emergency healing, which by the way also gives her 50% Dendro resistance while the burst lasts, which means she takes less damage from those core explosions. But regardless, I definitely felt there was more flexibility when it came to choosing between Dendro and Hydro characters with Nilou. In fact, I built this really weird team that kind of worked. Remember Candace? Well, I really feel bad about this Sumeru Shinyan, so I actually went ahead and created this comp that's made up of Nilou, Nahida, Candace, and Yaoyao. What's happening here is that Candace burst applies Hydra Infusion to Yaoyao's normal attacks, and she's now actually built with full EM artifacts, so she can trigger Bountiful Bloom explosions, almost reaching 40k hits. It's a pretty funny team that actually works, although there's not that much healing, so don't take this team too seriously. So what do I think about this bunny spawning unit? I like her a lot. She can apply Dendro pretty well, and her healing can go from decent to really good. And while her damage is lackluster, thanks to Quicken, she can unleash decent enough numbers and contribute to the team's overall performance. Still, I wish her burst allowed her to keep the bunnies from disappearing if you switch her out, but on the bright side, it only lasts 5 seconds, and it takes few seconds just to get all 3 bunnies out. And also, because I mainly used the burst as an emergency to heal the whole team, I didn't even need to build that much energy on Yaoyao. I think it's fair to say by this point, she's the best Sumeru character out of the whole bunch. I mean, it's not a tough competition, but regardless, you can easily build her as a budget healer and utilize her Dendro application for several teams, although some comps like Hyperbloom or Burgeon aren't as reliable when using her as a solo Dendro unit when compared to Traveler or Nahida. However, she is an excellent healer for Nilou teams, and she can replace Barbara or Kokomi, which means there's more flexibility when it comes to building these bountiful core teams. Also, what's really great about her is that Yaoyao works right out of the box. She's absolutely fine as a C0 unit, and in fact, her best upgrade is the first Constellation, and that's only if you're running double Dendro teams. Otherwise, her C2 reduces her energy recharge needs, and C4 and C6 improve her personal damage. Who knows, maybe she can become a better damage dealer with these upgrades, and I might just make a video about this. But overall, Yaoyao is an excellent 4-star unit, especially if you still haven't built Traveler or Kali. Otherwise, if you want a combination of Dendro application and healing, you can easily grab her from the upcoming Liyue event for free. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'd appreciate if you could press the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.